He was the National Security Advisor to former U.S. President Donald Trump between 2018 and 19, and has served as the interim U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. Please welcome our keynote speaker for this session, John Bolton.
Well, thank you very much for being invited to speak to the conference, even if only virtually. I think we are looking at the end of the coronavirus pandemic. I hope it's sooner rather than later, but I appreciate the opportunity to be with you, even if just over the screen. It's obviously a very, very timely subject to look at the Middle East, West Asia, as you might call it. Because a lot has happened in the past few years, and I think there's every prospect for a lot more happening. Some of it good, some of it very, very dangerous indeed. I think, of course, the most recent headline is the recognition of Israel and the exchange of full diplomatic relations by two key players in the region, Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates. We have the expectation that Sudan and Morocco will do the same. And I think this presages other Gulf Arab countries in particular, also extending full diplomatic recognition to Israel. What is it that has brought this about? I certainly don't underestimate the amount of diplomatic effort that was required, and it's a significant achievement. But I think it's important to understand these recognitions as a reflection of the shifting geostrategic tectonic plates of the region. It's a reflection, not a cause, of these changes. And what is the rationale for that change? I think the appreciation that between the Gulf Arab states and Israel and others, that the main threat to regional peace and security is not Israel, it's Iran. And their perception of that threat has triggered not just the formal diplomatic exchange, but an intensification of political and military and intelligence cooperation, all designed to protect not just against the Iran nuclear threat, but its ballistic missile program, its support for terrorism in the region and beyond, and its deployment of conventional military forces through Iraq and Syria and elsewhere. So this is a growing, and I think it will be a continuing and expanding amount of cooperation. It provides enormous opportunities as well, not just on the military and political side, but on the economic side as well. The joining of the Gulf oil revenues with Israeli technology, potentially very significant, but also, and I think this is important for the Gulf Arab states, the potential for stability that will bring outside foreign investment into their region as well, no longer just being a place where sovereign wealth funds invest around the world, but where more and more resources will be applied to the Gulf states themselves. Obviously, the big unspoken subject here is the future of oil, its continued use for transportation and many other uses, but also whether the oil resources and natural gas can be used for other things in chemicals and plastics to provide continuing supply of revenue for the states that have these resources, but to guard against the possibility that oil revenues will fall and not be replaced. They want to generate other economic activity. And diplomatic relations with Israel and the political stability it demonstrates we're about to see. Now, this is also important to understand that other outside powers, I think, will be playing a larger role in the region. Certainly, they aspire to play a larger role in the region. The U.S., despite the continuing talk about the pivot to Asia, has to play as a world power. We are interested everywhere. We're interested in East Asia, we're interested in South Asia, we're interested in West Asia. That's not going to go away. But other countries, I think, have begun to play a more important role, and they could roil the waters in the Middle East to a significant extent. Russia's already doing that. It's over the past several years enhanced its position in Syria. It's a principal player in the surrogate civil war inside Libya. I think Putin continues to aspire to recreate Russian influence equivalent to that of the former Soviet Union in West Asia. He's played a weak hand very successfully. He has a lot in common with many of the countries there as a major producer and exporter of oil and natural gas itself. So Russia has seen a return to influence in the Middle East it hasn't had really since Sadat expelled the Soviet military advisors in the early 70s. China obviously is a consumer of energy, sees the Middle East as a source for petroleum that it needs. I think this is a worrying aspect for the countries of Southeast Asia and India as China tries to continually expand in its efforts to achieve hegemony, certainly in East Asia and I think beyond that as well. And Turkey, conceitedly a regional country, but a country that's changed its policies substantially under Recep Erdogan, pursuing what I can only call neo-Ottomanist impulses in the region, certainly in Syria and other places. It's behaved in a way contrary to what I think its NATO obligations are. I am hoping that the 2023 presidential election in Turkey shows the people reflecting they don't want to follow the path Erdogan is on. But make no mistake, Turkey, as exemplified by its role in the surrogate civil war in Libya, is playing a much larger military and political role than it has in the past. So there are a lot of factors working in West Asia, some of them optimistic, some of them much more concerning. This is a subject that we could all talk about for days. I'm sorry I'm limited to this brief survey, and I'm particularly sorry I'm not with you, but look forward to further conversations, more in person when the days of the coronavirus are over. Thank you again for inviting me.